Hey guys, I saw more movies, but I don't really have that much to say about I saw more movies, but I don't have that much to say about this lot, so here you go. Starting off with the latest installment in the Fast and Furious franchise. Now, the Fast and Furious movies have always been very middle of the road for me. And by that I mean 6, 6, 4, 5, 6, 5, 5, 6, 2. I often find that the 6s in this franchise are the ones I was most entertained by, and the ones below 5 were the ones I was least entertained by. 5 and 8 are probably my favorites of the bunch. Sure, they're stupid, but they're a ton of fun, and they're just major thrill rides. I mean, yeah, they're really flawed, especially the 8th one.
This bitch is crazy! That's not good! That's not good!
But you can overlook it because they aren't really movies that demand you take these aspects so seriously, which might actually be the biggest problem with this new film. Yep, Fast and Furious 9 is stupid. Yep, Fast and Furious 9 is very entertaining, but it also demands you take it much more seriously than a lot of the other films in this franchise. Yes, some of the set pieces in this movie shine in the same way some of the best in the rest of the franchise do. The scene with Helen Mirren in London is great. The scene with Ramsey in Edinburgh is fantastic. But the majority of this movie is way too serious. This is the first movie in the franchise since 2 to not have Chris Morgan as a writer, and it kinda shows. And yeah, I don't like Free, I really don't like Hobbs and Shaw, but Chris Morgan seems to have really gotten the franchise, whereas these new writers seem to have really not. This movie feels like they watched Fast and Furious 7 and then looked at a bunch of Fast and Furious memes on Reddit and then tried to write a script. They're trying to do some fan service here, but they're also trying to have serious character points, and it just doesn't mesh well at all. They are trying to make a serious plot based entirely off of memes. Hey, people have made memes about Vin Diesel's character saying family a lot. How do we make his obsession with family a plot point? Oh, I know, let's give him an evil little brother who no one else except him and Michelle Rodriguez's character knew about, and let's make him the main villain of the movie. That sounds like a great idea. Ooh, and people joke about them going to space a lot, so let's have them take a car to space so they can stop a satellite from basically taking over the world. That's a great idea. It's not really even that good of a meme movie, to be honest. And it certainly does not help that it is not a good movie on its own. The plot is bad, there's a lot of twists that don't really serve any purpose whatsoever. The acting is not very strong with a couple of exceptions. I mentioned earlier in this review that there are a couple of fantastic action sequences, but most of the action scenes in this movie are entertaining. There's just a difference between the entertainingly bad ones and the entertainingly good ones. There's also a lot of tonal whiplash within these action scenes that makes them a lot worse. The dialogue in this movie is really bad. The humor in this movie doesn't really land all that often either. It's competently shot, but it's not all that interesting in that regard. A lot of the filtering choices were obnoxious. It's overstuffed, the pacing is messy, there's a lot of shit in here that did not need to be in here. There's a lot of dumb stuff in this movie, and I would be willing to have a bit more lenience on it if it didn't take itself so goddamn seriously. This film was not absolutely hopeless, to be fair. It's definitely better than Hobbs and Shaw, and I had more fun with it than I had with Tokyo Drift. There are some really fun performances here, and I enjoyed what were basically cameos in this movie. There's some cool production design, I enjoyed some of the costume design too. I was honestly surprised by how much I liked the sound design within this movie, especially in the opening sequences. And as I already said, the car scenes in London and Edinburgh were a lot of fun. But on the whole, I think this movie was not a good. The bane of its existence really is its tone. This film kind of felt like a parody of itself, and I would be completely fine with that if it didn't demand you to take it seriously at nearly all times. Check it out if you want. I had a good time, and I would recommend it overall, even if I think this movie kinda sucked. And I'm giving Fast and Furious 9 a 3 out of 10. I also saw the new Monster Hunter movie, and it was really bad. This is a film I had basically no expectations for, and I was still genuinely baffled by how bad it was. I can't even say whether or not I enjoyed it, I just spent the whole film kind of confused. It's not even a noteworthy bad movie, it's just a really bad movie. It's especially confusing because this is the kind of bad movie you would have expected to come out 10 years ago. This feels more like a bad early 2010s movie than some actual bad early 2010s movies. And even for that time period, this movie would feel extremely dated. The dialogue is hammy, the humor does not land at any point, the acting is atrocious, the musical score was overbearing and often tried to force a tone that was not properly earned by the film itself. The pacing is messy and all of the characters are irritating. Every visual effect in this movie is bad without fail. I really hated a lot of this movie's framing choices. There's some really bad zoom usage in this movie and it gets obnoxious fast, but they do it so goddamn much. It often just felt like they were trying to compensate for how bad these visual effects are. A lot of this movie is just pointless conflict, and I kinda hate that. I guess they really wanted to just throw as much as they could into this movie, considering nothing about the story was actually interesting or well developed. It's all just really irritating. Easily the worst aspect of this movie has to be the editing. It's incomprehensible and at certain points just becomes an eyesore. Especially when they're quick cutting in scenes from scene to black, scene to black, to scene to black. It did not help that a lot of these scenes were combined with atrocious usage of flashing lights and strobe effects. Oh yeah, and speaking of lights, why is the lighting in this movie so bad? There is an overabundance of scenes that were clearly not filmed at night that they wanted to look like they were filmed at night and tried to change in post. Needless to say, the results did not turn out very good. There are scenes in this movie that were very clearly filmed at night. I don't know why they had to film during the daytime for a bunch of the nighttime scenes. I understand shooting at night can be more expensive, but you have a $60 million budget and it clearly wasn't used in a lot of the other places it should have been used, so why couldn't it have been used here? Anyways, despite the fact that this movie's near incompetence left me completely and utterly baffled in the cinema, I don't actually have that much to say about it, so we're kinda done here. There was one kinda cool shot in the spider's nest scene, that is literally it. I could try and give an actual conclusion on this movie, but instead I'll just let you know that near the beginning of the film, one character says to another, "You got hella reflexes." What is this, Life is Strange? And I'm giving Monster Hunter a 1 out of 10. I also saw In the Heights, and I liked it. This is another one I really don't have that much to say about at all. This is pretty well acted across the board, and I like that a lot of the actors were the same ones who were in the play. There are some very interesting plot threads and dynamics, and there are some uninteresting plot threads and dynamics, but it leans more towards the former. There were some cool visual choices, and there were some not so cool visual choices. The humor often landed, although sometimes it didn't. I know these are very general, bland statements, but I was not kidding when I said I don't have that much to say about this movie. There's a lot of great costume design, there's some cool production design work, I think there's some fantastic usage of color in this movie. It has a very vivid personality and you really feel like you're a part of the experience. The choreography is exhilarating and fun, and I really liked nearly every scene it was showcased in. I really liked a lot of the songs in the movie, especially Paciencia y Fe. That song and the sequence within which it is featured is so emotionally powerful. It was beautiful and heartbreaking. It was really sad. I found I was sad. What does hold some of the music back for me, and what is probably my biggest issue with the film as a whole, to be honest, is the mixing. Oftentimes the vocals are far too quiet and it gets pretty distracting. And it is so poorly handled at points that it ruins songs that otherwise would have had potential, such as No Me Diga and 96,000. The fan favorite song from this movie seems to be Blackout, and I hate to say it, but wow, I really disliked that one. It's probably an issue with the play as well, but dear god, the powerless metaphor is paper thin to a point that's kind of annoying. That kinda covers everything I have to say about this film. It was kind of uninteresting at points, but overall I enjoyed it. Oh yeah, some of the green screens were a little iffy. Oh yeah, and I found Lin-Manuel Miranda's character really irritating, and I didn't like how he interrupted the story, but I'm willing to forgive it because the reason that the character is in this movie is pretty good. I have a lot of respect for that, even if I think it disrupts the narrative horribly. And I'm giving In the Heights a 6 out of 10. It is closer to a 7 than a 5, but I'm giving it a 6. That's the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe, check out my music available on all streaming services. I'm bad at outros, and I'll see you in whatever I do next.